we'll get started. So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Gail Lee. I'm the Sustainability Director for UCSF Health and the UCSF Health campus. I want to welcome all of you to our first electrification workshop, and we'll hope to have more in the future, so we'll see how it goes today. So I just wanted to mention we have three speakers. We have Joseph Chen, who is part of Peninsula Clean Energy, a colleague of mine, and also a home energy auditor. We have Lauren Wan from SunShares on Business Council on Climate Change, and we have Annika Osborne from Cool the Earth. So first have Joseph come up, speak a little bit about all of the home electrification programs. Lauren will talk about SunShares, which is a solar and battery program. And then Annika will talk about EVs and electric bikes. So why don't we start with Joseph? Come on up.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you everyone else for having me. My name is Joseph. I'm not exactly where to, that one, I guess. Hi, everyone on camera. I will be talking to you today about what electrification is, why it's important, and really why we should try and care about it or at least strive for it. There's a lot of pieces that I think go into it, and I'm here to help at least start to demystify the process. And so who I am, right? And so I need to establish my credentials, otherwise you don't believe me. Who's this dude who's up here at the podium talking about electrification? Well, I am what's called an energy coach. I am also a Department of Energy certified energy efficiency specialist. So I think that gives me a little bit of credibility about who I am. I've crawled in a lot of attics and a lot of crawl spaces, and so I can tell you a lot about what's going on in your home from an energy point of view, and I'm here to tell you that in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of health, in terms of affordability, going electric really is the best of all worlds. And so with that, a high level indication of what electrification is. It's pretty simple, actually. You go ahead and find the appliances in your home that burn any kind of gas. And I'll talk about the usual 5 culprits in a second here. Then you replace those, not all at once. You don't have to do it all at once, although you can if you're really ambitious. And you replace it with something that just takes a plug or electricity. And pretty much that's it. So let's take the frame of reference where if we have something that burns, let's just not have it burn, and then we are in a fully electrified home. So those big 5 that I alluded to earlier. So we have your furnace. That's the thing that makes your air warm, and that's really good and really important, and I'm glad that we're going to talk about that. Your water heater, the thing that makes your water warm, allows you to take hot showers or cold showers if you're insane. Actually, it doesn't have anything to do with your cold showers. That's just regular water. And then you have your stove and your oven. Sometimes your oven is already working on electricity, but you have your gas stoves. We hear a lot about gas stoves. We love gas stoves, but we also have other ways of heating up your food. Then you have your clothes dryer, probably the most innocuous one of all of these that fly a little bit under the radar. I'm here to tell you about ways that you can turn those into electric ones as well. Many of you actually already have electric dryers too. And then finally, the last one is your car, your vehicle, whatever it is that you use to get around. If you are driving an engine-based car, then that means that you are burning fuel. If you're driving anything else that takes a different source of fuel that's not electricity, then technically that also uses fuel of some kind. So we can talk about the pros and cons of all of those, but we also have Annika talking about the different programs available for EVs and e-bikes a little bit later too. So we'll put a pin on that one for now. So you might be wondering, why is this important? I did allude to this a little bit earlier, and that's because it's got a lot of benefits for electrification. You can try and rank these however you want. I rank this one as number 1, which is electrical energy and electrically powered appliances are the most efficient way of spending energy because you waste less. It's usually less expensive to operate. I say usually because sometimes gas prices and electricity prices, they tend to fluctuate. But when it comes to energy efficiency, making sure you're getting every last drop of something's ability to do work, to talk about it from a scientific perspective, there is nothing better. Then we have a very, very important second aspect of it, which is it is friendly for the environment. It also means that anything that's friendly for the environment as a whole is also very, very friendly for your own household. Because we'll see this in a little photo a little bit later, but if you have pieces in your house that are combusting, everything that combusts with gas has a byproduct. That's why we don't stick our faces in the tailpipes of our cars, because that would kill you. And so on a much, much lower level, the things that emit emissions can slowly make their way into your household. We have to make sure that we have a healthier home. And by having a healthier home, that expands and balloons out to having a healthier community. And, oops, sorry, everyone. That was very loud, I'm sure. And when you have a healthy community, that means you have a healthy region, healthy state. Keeps going, universe, why not? Why stop there? And so when we take a look at burning gas, look at the technology. If you take a match and you light it on fire, or you take a little unit of gas and you light it on fire, that is the same exact technology that cave people used when they first walked this earth. That was several millennia ago. We have the technology to do things a lot better now. And one of those things is to use electricity, this magnificent thing that Ben Franklin discovered with his kite, and warp that into basically shaping the world in the way that we want it to be. And that is also true for the ways that we use our electricity at home. So you might be thinking, okay, if this is so great, why haven't I done it so far? Or why hasn't this been a top of mind thing for everyone? Well, there has been a very valid concern that it's usually more expensive to get electric versions of appliances. It's true. But there are a lot of incentives out there to try and get us to the point where it becomes a decision not to say, ooh, do I want to spend more money to get the electric appliance? But rather, these incentives help bring the cost of these electric devices down to a point where it says, all right, if I had to leverage a gas furnace or a heat pump, they are roughly the same cost to install. So the incentives help make it a much more equal apples to apples comparison from a cost point of view up front. And then when it comes to actual consumption, operating costs, that's where the heat pump starts to win out. Lastly, what I'll say about the reasons why we can electrify is if you have solar or you're planning to get it, Lauren's going to talk about this a little bit later about how we can find ways of getting solar a lot more affordably too. You can get closer to self-sufficiency. And what I mean by that is it's really, really, really hard to drill down into your backyard and try and extract natural gas from the earth. Versus if you stick a couple of panels up onto your roof, then you can self-generate electricity that then maybe you put into a battery or you feed it to the grid and then you grab it whenever you want. But the point is that electric appliances can be self-sufficient, which means that you can generate your own fuel and therefore, not to villainize anyone that might be associated with PG&E, but it means you have to pay less to PG&E and everyone loves that. All right, so I said this before, right? This is a cartoon drawing and it's intentionally in low resolution because I wanted to make it look like it's the place that we don't want to be, which is a home. This is not my home because this home is way too big for the San Francisco Bay Area. It also has a basement. Who has a basement? Nobody has a basement. In any case, what I'm trying to emphasize with this is if we take a look at these different sources of appliances. All of them are burning gas. It's very clear that even though we have flues, even though we have means of taking the exhaust and trying to route it outside, there is always a little bit that's going to escape, whether that's immediately or whether that's over time, because things start to degrade with time. Nothing is perfect forever unless they are diamonds. Ha ha ha, that was a bad joke. Anyway, what we have here is a shiny new picture with a brand new spanking new modern household that uses only electric appliances. And it's possible, 100% possible, to get a home that's completely powered by electricity, whether you have solar panels or not, whether you have a car or not. But what is very important is that even if you don't do it all at once, you try and at least keep it in mind that when your water heater next fails. Not that I'm wishing ill will on anyone on this call for your household appliances, but if it ends up being the case where it reaches the end of its life and becomes inoperable, definitely consider going into the heat pump water heater space, or at least finding alternatives that are not burning fossil fuels in order to get there. Ooh, I know that was a lot of information. Normally I would take a pause, but we have a Q&A session at the end here. So to continue on, we talked about those big five appliances. Now let's talk about the alternatives to those big five appliances. And I'll do a really quick hit here, and then I'll also go into each one of those systematically. And so first I talked about the furnace. And so the furnace can be replaced by something called a heat pump used for heating and cooling. And you're going to see this word a lot because a water heater can also be replaced by something called a heat pump water heater. And then there's a third thing, a stove and oven. And if you guess that this could be a heat pump, well, actually, that's number 4. I ordered these wrong. It's an induction stove. But number 4 for your dryer, yes, that one is a heat pump dryer that you can incorporate into your home. And then finally, you have your car, a gas car that goes into a EV, which I really wish that sometimes I got to just say gas car, electric car. It's just better for the well, not alliteration, you know what I mean. In any case, these are the quick hits. So you see one word across this multiple times, and that's heat pump. And you might be wondering, okay, this is clearly important. What is that? So let me explain what a heat pump is. So there's a lot of thermodynamics, very deep things that I could get into here. But instead of doing all of that, what I'd like to try and put as a comparison, as an analogy, if you will, is if you think about a water pump. What is a water pump for? It's to move water from one place to another. If your house is flooded, maybe the basement or something else, you have something called a sump pump. That's just moving water from one place where it is and putting it into another place where it will be. A heat pump is exactly the same, except the thing that we are moving is heat energy. And scientifically speaking, heat energy is just taking something that has energy in the system, either putting energy into it, which heats it up, or taking energy out, which cools it down. And so the quintessential example is the refrigerator. And the refrigerator is cold on the inside. You might be thinking, where's the heat in a refrigerator? Well, that's exactly the point. You've taken the heat out of the refrigerator, and that means that the air around the refrigerator, like down here at the mic's up here, so I can't talk. But down at the floor, if you ever put your hand down by the floor of the refrigerator, you'll notice that it has a lot of warm air coming out. Think of that as the air that used to be inside the refrigerator. It's just being pushed back outside. And the process for doing this, it is crazy efficient. In some of the slides earlier, you saw me call it magic. So if all of the scientific jargon didn't make any sense to you, just it's magic, it's witchcraft, it's sorcery, it just works. Because the process of moving energy instead of generating new energy. So the process of taking a unit of gas and setting it on fire that emits something, emits energy, emits pollution, emits a bunch of things. Great. You can only ever get 100% efficiency out of one thing. That makes sense. But when you take a look at heat pumps, because what they're doing is instead of generating new heat from something, all it's really doing is using its energy to gather heat from here, from there, from over here, and pushing it into a little bubble that it can then shove into your home. That process is 400% efficient. You are basically creating more from nothing. And there are very few concepts in the thermodynamic world that can achieve that. So if we take a look at some efficiency numbers here, just to really hammer it home, a gas furnace is not perfect. When you burn that piece of gas, a lot of that gets transferred into heat. Not all of it does. I'd say 78% of that gets transferred into heat. Sometimes you can get 82, sometimes you can get 90, sometimes you can even get 96%. It can be really efficient, but you will never exceed the 100% number. Versus heat pumps, which can blow past that 100% easily every time, unless you're in like subarctic climates. I'm talking like -17. I used to live in Wisconsin for a hot minute. That's what I'm talking about. But even that -17, there are what's called cold climate heat pumps that can operate even at 100 to 150% efficiency, which is still better than 100. It's better than 78%. And so at that point, you're still able to get a ton of efficiency out of those systems. The best part about all of this, especially because right now in San Francisco and anywhere else that you might be living in the Bay Area, or anyone else out on the Zoom, if you happen to be in an area where you kind of wish that you had air conditioning, well, great. A heat pump not only can provide heat to your home, but it can also be an air conditioner. I can tell you for a fact that as a San Bruno resident who has a heat pump and has my second summer with it, I could not be more thankful that yesterday it was 69 in my home and everywhere else sucked. Thank you very much, heat pumps. All right, so there are a couple different flavors of heat pump. You can actually take the existing furnace and just like take the box of the furnace, swap it out for a new heat pump. That's great. That's called a ducted system. You will also see some that hang on the walls. That's called a mini split system. Both of those are heat pumps. Both of those are capable of both heating your home and cooling it, and they are all extremely efficient. Usually the cost of installing one of these is about the same as if you had to do a brand new furnace after you factor in all of the incentives. Man, I'm resisting every urge to ask for questions right now, but let's move on to go into the next one, which is the heat pump water heater. So a lot of what I just said is going to be the exact same. And so the difference here is that because a heat pump water heater, it usually occupies the space that it extracts the heat from, it's a teeny bit less efficient than your other counterparts. I said 400% before for heating and cooling. This one's about 300, maybe a little bit more, 350%. But that's compared to a standard gas tank water heater, which if you ever thought about it, you probably thought, oh man, I can't believe how inefficient that is. Well, I'll tell you, it's only 55% efficient. Only 55% of the gas that you put into a gas water heater actually gets used to heat the water. This is different from a tankless gas water heater. That's a different story. It's actually very efficient. But for a regular standard gas tank water heater, which occupies 95-ish% of the homes here in the Bay Area, it is only 55% efficient, which means you are effectively wasting half of it every day. So what this means is that the heat pump water heater, it extracts the heat from the room that it occupies. So generally speaking, you don't want this in conditioned space. You want this to be in like your garage. Sometimes people can put it in like a little shed or an enclosure outside. It is an electrical device, so you can't be rained on. So it's important to have some kind of shelter over this thing. But what's kind of nice is it provides free air conditioning in the space that it occupies. So my garage is like super nice and calm right now. It's usually smart and Wi-Fi enabled, which means that you can actually program it to only turn on during the times when electricity is least expensive. So for example, we might be familiar with the fact that electricity is expensive from 4 to 9 p.m., at least here in PG&E territory. Any of our friends in other places probably have other times of use because that just makes sense around the country. So what you can tell the heat pump water heater to do is just not turn on from 4 to 9. That 5-hour period where you don't recharge the water should, asterisk, be plenty for you and your family to subsist on the hot water that already exists inside of the tank while you're waiting for the hour of high peak time to wear out, and then you can go ahead and heat your water back up. Okay, we're almost done. We're halfway through, okay? I know that I've been talking a lot, but we talk about the stove next. And this is the one I actually have the least amount to talk about because it's pretty much the exact same concept. I always like to start with the efficiency comparison. So if you're using a gas stove, it is the worst efficiency out of anything that I will talk about here. It is only 32% efficiency, or 32% efficient. PSA, by the way, this is, if there's anything at all that you take away from today's conversation, please turn on your vent hood when you are using a gas stove. That is my PSA. It is going to be the #1 thing that improves the health of you and your family by turning on your vent every single time you're using a gas stove, because 32% as heat means that there is 68%, I had to do math there, 68% that is going into your air, and that 68% is bad for you. Just straight up, it's gas that's burned. And there's sometimes different levels of impurities because natural gas is not uniformly the same wherever you get it. So just PSA, please. Then everything else is pretty much as expected with electric coil, 74%, induction, 85%. If you're unfamiliar with what induction is, it's a form of electric heating that uses magnets. So it only heats up the part of the pan that you're actually using. And because of this, it's very much contactless. Well, it's contact, but not fully contactless. It means it's really easy to clean. And so, for example, you have this flat stovetop that just has these little rings on it where the magnets are. And when you're done cooking, you can wait maybe about 30 seconds because then it instantly cools off. And then you just wipe it down twice, 3 times, and then you're done. So cleaning takes about 45 seconds, and you're good to go for the next time that you want to cook. So we have almost the last one, the dryer. We know what a dryer does. It dries our clothes. And there's something called the heat pump dryer. It also dries your clothes, and it's really efficient at doing that. And what's really great is that since it reuses some of that, think of it as like a giant dehumidifier, really, more than anything. Because what it does is it, uses the evaporation from the clothes, takes that water, it either collects it into like a jug, which you can empty, or more easily, it'll just dispense into the same place that your exhaust or the wastewater from your washing machine goes into. And what's really great about this is that it's ventless. So you never have to worry about like lint getting caught in a vent somewhere, about, wondering where the vent is actually going to go. You can stick it in a closet for all I care, as long as you have a way of draining it. And it's usually only like a 120-volt plug. So it becomes no different from like your toaster or a dehumidifier, where you just carry it. It's heavy, it's big. You don't want to do that. But you could, if you wanted to, and you were really strong, just move it into any house or any room in the house and just plug it in, and it'll just start drying your clothes. Finally, there's the car. And Annika's going to talk a lot more about like where you can get cars and the programs that are surrounding that. But I won't beat the horse here, which says, hey, cars that are EVs, they're great. They don't generate any pollution. Transportation is actually the #1 contributor to pollution in the Bay Area. So let's try and do our part to bring that number a little bit down. Cars that are EVs, they don't require as much maintenance, and far fewer fluids to worry about. Washer fluid, maybe brake fluid. Yeah, probably brake fluid. I don't know. I have an EV. I've had an EV for a year, and I've never gone for a maintenance visit yet. That probably speaks more to me as a person than it does about the EV. But yeah, it hasn't failed yet. So great. Let's move on. So I talked about a lot of the rebates and incentives, or at least I mentioned that they exist. So here's a short list of some of the ones that are different. And this is kind of the hardest thing to talk about, because every single program out there, every single region, every single what's called CCA seems to have a different flavor of what they want to do here. And so to make it easy, there is a resource. It's called switcheson.org. And if you go in there and type in your zip code, you can find out exactly which incentives apply to you. And this is different because in San Francisco City and County, you have no heat pump, heating and cooling rebates. Sorry. Actually, that's a lie. There's a $1,000 one that's statewide, so it applies to San Francisco. But if you live in San Mateo County, for example, then you have one that is $2,500 for a heat pump for heating and cooling. But then if you move over to like Silicon Valley Clean Energy, it's a little different. In any case, here's a short list of all of them. Some of them are income limited. And in fact, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, which we have heard about, there are two flavors to that. One of them is a tax credit, which is available now. And there's also a state-by-state program that should, another asterisk, release sometime this month, if our sources are to be believed. That will then allow you to take upfront discounts off of a lot of these electrification appliances as well. I want to leave you with an example, because if I just tell you about this, then maybe you'll believe me, maybe you won't. So let's take, for example, a replacement of a gas water heater. So a gas water heater, say it fails and you want to replace it for a new one. If you want to get one that's permitted, which everyone should do, then you should also expect it to cost roughly about $2,500. That's just it. You get no incentives, you get no local rebates, you get no reductions on anything. It's just $2,500. Okay, so if you were to do this with a heat pump water heater and you have a high household income, and you are doing this in San Mateo County, which I mentioned does have some rebates. So this equation does not work for everyone, but you can expect similar ones to consider. It might cost you $7,000, and you think, wow, that's 3 times the cost of a regular gas water heater. Okay, that's true. But if you take the $2,000 rebate off the top, and then you apply the 30% tax credit, then it gets down to a much more manageable comparison, $2,500 versus $3,500. $1,000 is not a small amount of money, but if you consider the operating costs, that thing should pay for itself within the next 3 to 4 years. And with the rate that gas and electricity keeps on growing, it might even be sooner than that. Now let's take a look at if you have a moderate or low income. And the state program that I alluded to earlier was actually live. So we do math, $7,000, $3,000 in local rebates, because now you have a income qualified version of the $2,000 rebate. You can get $1,750 off the top thanks to the IRA. You can still get the IRA tax credit, and suddenly, wow, look at that. It becomes cheaper than putting in a gas water heater. And on top of that, it will then save you in the long run as time goes on. Okay, so this is my final slide. Thank you so much for getting to this point with me. I just wanted to kind of show you that I walk the walk and I also talk the talk, because I took my house my 5 appliances. I didn't put my car on here because transparently I made this chart before I put the car thing in there. But because I was able to mix and match a ton of the rebates and incentives, I spent a lot of time trying to wrestle my way through this. I managed to not only get my 4 appliances upgraded, but I also took my house from a 60 amp fuse box to a 200 amp main panel. I didn't even talk about panels. That's a whole another 1 hour conversation, but it was important and essential for what I was trying to do. But even with all these costs, really to just boil it down is if you look at the very bottom row, it would have cost me about $34,000 if I put everything together with all the reductions and incentives and loans and everything that I was able to get at very, very, very low interest rates as well, or just free. It came out to about $6,000 in total. And it did take me about 7, 8 months to do all of this, and to replicate this for your own home is something that I can encourage you to try to do. I was a little bit hyper vigilant about it and, honestly a little obsessive. That's why I'm up here talking to you about it. So you may have a little bit of mileage that varies, but I can encourage you to try and get to as close as possible or beat me, if we're a competitive bunch here, then please go ahead and do so. But I hope that this was helpful, that you learned a little bit about electrification, why it's important, how it's helpful to you, how it's helpful to your homes and your families. I know that there are some individuals here who are renters and that a lot of this doesn't apply to you. There are definitely some ways that you can encourage your landlords if you are part of renting a home, let's say. The landlords can benefit from all these same incentives. So it is advantageous for them because it makes you as a renter feel more comfortable and they get a bunch of tax breaks. And if they were due for a renovation, the landlord special, if you will, then sure, why not? They should definitely try and explore these as options. If you are in, say, an apartment, a multifamily kind of situation, there are ways that you can get things like, instead of a full induction stove, for example, you can get a induction hob, one of which we're raffling out here today. So if you were in person here, then you get to benefit from that. If not, well, Amazon, $70, something like that.
We're actually offering it.
Oh, wow, look at that. Oh my God. Okay, great. Well, one of you is going to get that. The other's Amazon, $70. And that's just the induction stove. You can get portable heat pumps. There's one called Gradient that's coming soon to the market, and that one's really cool and really great. But there are definitely ways that you as renters are not going to be excluded from this conversation. So thank you so much. I think that's my time, and I will hand things off over to Lauren.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Wan. I'm the Climate Programs Manager at the Business Council on Climate Change. And today I'll be talking to you about the SunShares program and how you can take advantage of some of our clean energy options. So next slide. Great. So Bay Area SunShares is a solar and storage discount program, like Gail mentioned. What the Business Council on Climate Change does, or BC3, is that we pool the buying power of all 9 Bay Area counties to negotiate reduced prices for a limited time campaign every fall. So the goal of this program is to make clean energy more accessible and affordable, but also make the Bay Area more sustainable and resilient as a whole. So we're trying our best to accelerate clean energy adoption across the Bay Area. And then our discount season is actually open now until November 15th. So all Bay Area residents are eligible to participate in our program, and this includes these 9 counties. So if if you live in any of these counties, you are eligible for the SunShares discount. So I'll start off by mentioning now is a great time to go solar, and here I've listed kind of 4 different reasons. The first would be financial. So this fall is definitely a great time to go solar since you can stack the SunShares discount and the solar investment tax credit to fight inflation or any rising energy prices. So if you're interested in going solar, now is a great time to do so since you can stack. The SunShares discount is stackable with other credits, rebates, or incentives that you might be eligible for. Environmental, this next decade is one of our last chances to avoid the most severe impacts of climate change, and installing solar or storage will not only eliminate your home's greenhouse gas emissions from electricity use, but it also makes the electrical grid cleaner for everyone. And then economics. So the solar industry is one of the leading creators of jobs in the United States, and clean energy as a whole is one of the biggest employers in the energy sector. So you can support the renewable energy industry and clean jobs by installing solar or storage, or opting up to 100% renewable energy. And then lastly, we are seeing the impacts of climate change every day. This current heat wave is an example. So to be resilient to the effects of climate change, we need a localized, decentralized energy system, and going solar helps us get there. So this benefits not just you, but everyone else in your community. So solar panels have been around for decades and are pretty well known as a reliable technology, but home battery storage is newer and it's growing in popularity. So we'll talk about some of the reasons why adding storage to your solar system is beneficial. So first and foremost, adding storage to your solar system means that your lights will stay on during a public safety power shutoff or other power outages. So solar on its own is actually not going to keep your electricity running during an outage. It needs a battery to store the energy and feed it back into your home. With a battery installed, you can also store excess energy generated during sunny hour times and then use it when most needed. So during the evening, maybe through those, peak hours, 4 to 9 p.m. And this helps reduce waste, but also optimizes your energy use. And then battery storage systems that allow customization or preferential exporting can get you more savings on your electricity bills. So depending on where you get your power from or what kind of plan you're on, you might be on a time of use rates plan. And by charging from the grid when electricity is cheapest, and then discharging your solar energy onto the grid when electricity is most expensive, you can offset more of your electricity bill with solar. So we'll cover some basics on solar and battery interactions. Solar panels, as you already know, collect energy from the sun through PV cells, and then batteries can store the excess energy that you produce with your panels. So a term that you might have heard before is net energy, and that's the amount of energy you produce minus the amount of energy you consume. Something you've probably also heard of is net energy metering, or NEM. NEM is a billing mechanism that credits solar energy owners for the electricity that they export to the grid. So, for example, if a home has a solar electric system on the roof, it might generate more electricity than the home uses during the daylight hours. And that energy is sent back to the grid to fulfill the needs of other customers, or it's stored in a battery. During the nighttime, when the solar system does not produce energy, the home will either pull electricity from the grid, or it will pull from the home batteries if those are installed. So with net metering, customers can receive credits for the electricity that they provide to the grid, and they're also charged for any electricity that they use from the grid. And then you're billed for your net energy use. So you have a few options with Sunchers. Sunchers installers do offer rooftop solar installations, and they also offer the option to install both solar panels and home battery storage. And then finally, if you have solar panels installed on your roof, you have the option to add a battery unit to your existing system. So why should you go solar with Sunchers? There's a few things that set us apart from other options out there. With Sunchers, you'll be working with high quality installers. So we do the research of finding a quality installer that we trust, and we selected 2 providers this year through a rigorous pre-vetting process. And then as part of our evaluation process, we also negotiate significant discounts on quality solar and storage offerings off of our installers' regular pricing. So this helps Bay Area residents get some extra savings on their battery and storage systems. And then the prices are also turnkey, meaning that they reflect the whole cost of getting solar, from equipment to labor and permitting. And then finally, with Sunchers, you have the opportunity to receive and compare different proposals. So this way you can get to know your options and feel like you made the good decision. This comes with no commitment necessary. So you can go through the process of a consultation and getting a solar system proposal for your home with no obligation to install. So there's no kind of penalty if you don't end up signing a contract. So the installers that we're working with this year are Solar Union and Solar Technologies. These installers are chosen through a proposal evaluation process and price negotiation process with an external evaluation committee. So these committee members are experts in the local solar and storage market who are nominated by some of our outreach partners. So this year we have committee members from the City of Palo Alto Utilities, the City of Berkeley, but we look at installers and we select them based on a number of criteria, which includes their product offerings, so what kind of battery units or modules they're offering, the quality of the customer service, the competitiveness of the pricing. And then we also make sure that installers are properly licensed. So they have a C10 and a C46. And they also provide labor and equipment warranties. So these are installers that we trust and we've done our homework on. So what does the Sunshires process look like? To get started, you'd fill out a form on our website, and then in that form, you can choose which installers you want to receive a proposal from. We'll reach out to you in about a day or so about conducting a home assessment, which can be virtual or a site visit, and then that'll kick off the process for designing a custom proposal for your house. You'll receive a proposal from each installer you selected to hear from, and then you have about a month or so to sign your contract and secure that discounted pricing that you see on your proposal. So how do you know if your home is right for storage and solar? One of the most important factors for solar is the amount of sun that you get on your roof. So when installers contact you during the evaluation process, they're going to look at a couple of things. This includes what kind of roof you have and what angle it's at. They'll also look at your energy usage. So this will help determine your system size. And then essentially, if you're interested in storage, they'll look at your backup needs. So essentially, the longer you want to be able to power your home during an outage, the greater maximum capacity you'll want in the battery. And then the more appliances you want to be able to power at a time, the higher power rating you should look for. So a lot of different things are happening in the solar and storage industry. And I wanted to mention that the residential solar market is rapidly changing. So module availability a year ago was a constraint from the industry, and now that's changed. So inventory levels are high and module availability is no longer an issue or a constraint, but there are some policy changes that have happened in a few months that can cause supply chain disruptions and other delays at different stages of the process. So we definitely encourage you to communicate with installers about the timeline of your project. Keep in mind they can be different between installers. New incentives and rebates are coming out, so that 30% solar investment tax credit has been extended for 10 more years. And then NEM 3.0, if you've heard of that before, or NBT, will also apply to those installing solar this year. Current demand for solar and batteries is also really high right now. So if you're interested in solar, I would say there are changes in the solar process that reflect the current industry, and we encourage you to talk to an installer about the specifics of your project. So this is my last slide here. If you're interested in Sunshires and you want to claim the discount and talk to an installer, sign up and fill out the form on our website before November 15th, and then installers will contact you and work with you to create a customized proposal. I want to mention again that the process of receiving a proposal is free and there's no obligation to install. But if you do decide to go solar, sign your contract before December 15th. To lock in that discounted pricing. And that is all. Thank you so much to the UCSF team for inviting me.
Thank you, Lauren. So we'll save our questions to the end, but we want to make sure that everyone fills out a raffle ticket. So you enter into the drawing for the induction stove. And for the Zoom people, we have you logged in so we know who you are. And then also help yourself for a snack for lunch. And now we'll have Annika Osborne come and speak to us about Cool the Earth. Go ahead, Annika.
Hi, I'm Annika Osborne, and I'm with Cool the Earth, an environmental nonprofit with a mission to reduce carbon emissions and air pollution. And while we are big fans of walking, biking, public transit, and carpooling, preferably in an EV or on an e-bike, with our Ride and Drive Clean initiative, we work to accelerate the adoption of electric vehicles, EVs, and e-bikes in a fair and just marketplace. Thank you, Robert and Gail, for inviting me to talk today and for coordinating this important event. And I just wanted to note, we are also in the process of electrifying our home in San Rafael. It's great that you're offering programs to share all these great electrification, all this information about electrification with the UCSF community. On to the cars. So there are many benefits to driving electric. In California, our passenger vehicles are the single largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, representing around 50% of our individual carbon footprint. So when we switch from a gas car to an EV and plug into clean energy, like we can do here in the Bay Area, we are taking impactful climate action by reducing carbon emissions and air pollution, both which disproportionately impact our priority communities. And while driving electric is better for the planet, there's no sacrifice when you go electric. EV drivers save time because there aren't so many maintenance visits, money, and enjoy an improved driving experience. It's actually a little more fun to drive electric. And if anyone on this call already does drive electric, please put in your model in the chat in case people have questions about that model. It's nice when we're presenting to a community like this because you guys can kind of check in with each other, hopefully. I know UCSF is big though. All right, so let's talk about savings. Although early EV drivers paid a high premium for electric cars, today's EV drivers often save money. And here's why. It costs much less to fuel an electric car. So fueling a gas car can be 2 to 5 times more expensive than charging an EV, depending on where and when you charge it. And although electricity prices have gone up a bit this year, they tend to be more stable than gas prices. In addition to maintenance costs are 40% lower for EVs. It's basically adding windshield wiper fluid and rotating your tires. And then there are many incentives available to bring down the cost of purchasing or leasing an EV, a new or pre-owned EV. And we'll dive into that. So let's talk incentives. So there are currently 3 types of incentives that can save you money when you buy or lease certain EVs. Additional grants and rebates like Clean Cars for All are available for both new and pre-owned cars for people who qualify through their income and their residence. And we can address them in the Q&A if there is interest. Okay, so the first one is the federal tax credit or the Clean Vehicle Credit, which was updated in 2024 for purchasing a new or pre-owned EV. So the good news is that it's now available as a rebate at point of sale, and you don't require tax liability to access this rebate. It used to be that you had to collect this money when you filed your taxes against what you owed. There are some requirements for new EVs. You know, the EVs must be assembled in the US, there's an income cap, there are battery requirements, and many EVs and plug-in hybrids still qualify for either 3750 or 7500. I'll show you which ones qualify on the next slide. Then there's the pre-owned EV rebate for $4,000. I have a whole slide talking about that one. But for the new and pre-owned EV rebates, you want to make sure that your dealership is signed up with the IRS. So you'll need to verify that because you'll need to leave with some paperwork that you'll use when you file your taxes, since it is officially a tax credit. So the commercial credit can be applied when you lease an EV. The thing to note is that there are some very good lease deals going on right now with EVs, and there are no requirements when you lease an EV. There are no income caps. You know, it's almost all of the different manufacturers are offering some kind of lease rebate or bonus based off of this tax credit. Depending upon where you live and who provides your electricity, there may be additional utility and CCA incentives. And if you receive a bill from PG&E, they offer a pre-owned EV rebate for $1,000 up to $4,000 if your income qualifies. And then there are the Ride and Drive Clean EV discount campaigns, something that our nonprofit organization organizes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So there are several requirements for EVs to qualify, but here is a list of all of the EVs and plug-in hybrids that now qualify for the tax credit with the amounts. This is if you purchase a new EV or finance. Okay. So here's an overview of the federal tax credit rebate for pre-owned EVs. So it's up to $4,000, point of sale, again, no tax liability. I just wanted to point out the income caps, which could be great for students at UCSF and some people who are employed at UCSF as well. $25,000 vehicle price cap. has to be 2 years old. So right now we're in 2024. It has to be a 2022 or older modeling year. Okay. And a little information about the PG&E rebate, just, yeah, $1,000. I think you'll all receive these slides, so I just wanted to include this just in case. Okay. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about, the Ride and Drive Clean fall discount campaign. So, we've been doing this work with EVs and e-bikes for about 6 years, putting on webinars and EV shows. And we learned early on that the initial cost of getting an EV was one of the biggest barriers. So we decided to come up with these discount campaigns. So we offer EV discount campaigns for new EVs and pre-owned EVs. And we also offer e-bike discount campaigns. And the timing of this webinar is great because this month we're going to have all 3 of these running at the same time. So this is really great. I wanted to just note for the EV discount campaign, we had one going on in September, and we're going to be continuing on. I'll just list the 4 cars that are going to be available: the Audi Q4 e-tron, the Chevy Equinox, the Honda Prologue, and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. So basically, we work with Cartelligent, a broker, and they are able to negotiate special discounts that not all dealerships have. Sorry, I'm back at the fall discount campaigns, back a couple slides. Sorry about that. So they offer they can negotiate special discounts during certain times of the year. That's when we offer our discount campaign. So if you're interested in any of these 4 cars, now is a great time to start test driving or exploring. Yeah, and our e-bike discount campaign is actually launching today. It's with the Palo Alto Bicycles. I'll put links to all of these in in the chat at the end of my presentation. And yeah, the way to get started with our discount campaigns is to sign up on the Ride and Drive Clean website, and then that will kind of walk you through the whole process. All right, so the question is, which EV is right for you? Most fully electric EVs offer 200 to 300 miles of range. Some will go even farther on one charge. That means you can go from San Francisco to Tahoe with maybe a 15-minute charging stop, if at all. Some of these EVs you don't have to stop at all because they have such a bigger batteries, bigger range. Next. So yeah, there are over 40 all-electric vehicles available, over 40 plug-in hybrids, about 40 of them have all-wheel drive. When I started doing these presentations, like right during the pandemic, there were literally 10 models available. So we're very excited that the EV market is really blossoming and growing. Next. So if you're not in the market for an EV, an e-bike might be right for you. Instead of hopping in a gas car, you can try commuting or running errands with an e-bike. E-bikes are really fast and fun. There are so many different types and models to choose from cargo to commuter to recreational bikes. I did want to note, like right now, for our discount campaign, we're working with Palo Alto Bicycles, but we've also worked with the New Wheel. They have a retail shop in San Francisco, in Oakland, and one in Larkspur. And also we've partnered a lot with Rad Power Bikes, and they're out in Berkeley. Next. Yeah, so just a little bit of information about our current discount campaign that's going on right now. Up to $1,000 off of a variety of e-bikes. Next. So Ride and Drive Clean is ready to help you go electric. Like SunShares, we run these discount campaigns to reduce the cost of EVs and e-bikes. We're currently offering, big savings on new EVs, pre-owned EVs, and e-bikes. We have a couple of EV and e-bike shows this month coming up. We have one, it's called EV Week. It kind of goes along with Fleet Week on Saturday out at the piers. So that should be fun. And then we have one down in Palo Alto, and at the end of October, it's a frunk or treat. A frunk is a front trunk, in case a lot of EVs have front trunks because there's extra storage, available in EVs. We also offer a bunch of webinars. In fact, on Monday, we have a webinar about our EV discount campaign that we're just about to launch. And we offer workplace programs, and we have EV guides on our website. And that's all for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Annika. All right, well, it's time for questions. We have 8 minutes. So Liz, do you have questions? We'll
Yes, I
take
have
one
a
from
couple questions.
Zoom and then we'll take one
Yeah,
from the room.
sure. Why don't we start with the first one is someone had said, my understanding is that the Tesla or otherwise Powerwalls are not allowed in San Francisco. Could someone help clarify that?
Yeah, this is definitely something if you're like interested in battery storage, I would talk to the installer about. I haven't heard that Tesla powers are broadly not allowed in San Francisco. There are a couple of different battery models that SunTra's pre-vetted installers are offering. So they are installing Tesla Powerwalls. We have another installer offering Solar Edge batteries and also Panasonic. So if that specific battery module doesn't work for you, there are definitely other options out there.
Okay. Do we have any questions in the room? Yes.
Yep.
So you mentioned a few different appliances, but I'm curious, you get to start with one. The small five is ambitious, and I know you've done it, but if you can recommend one, would you recommend a certain appliance?
Yeah, so
Sorry,
do you,
Joseph, before you answer, could you repeat the question for us on Zoom so we could also hear what she's asking?
yes, of course. So the question was, is there a preferred appliance to start with in the grand scheme of all the different appliances that you can electrify? The answer is a bit complicated. It's pretty much whichever one you think is going to die first. But if all of them were of equal importance or equal lifespan, let's put it that way, then I would suggest that you start with the smallest one. And the easiest one is actually, believe it or not, the heat pump dryer. It's the easiest one to rip out and replace. Mhm.
Another question from Zoom?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and call on Mary, who has her hand raised. Mary, if you would like to talk and ask your question, please go ahead.
Mary, are you there? Okay, well, we can go to the next question and maybe Mary can
Okay, yeah.
ask your question.
Yes. So the next question was, and if someone wants to chime in for whoever typed in the question this, but PG&E pays you almost nothing and charges you significantly more. And I'm guessing their question was pertaining to when you electrify your home.
I think that question is in response to why would it make sense to go solar and get a battery? Lauren, I don't know if you have a answer that you have prepared for a question like that.
Yeah, thanks. This is a tricky one. So payback for solar energy exported to the grid is definitely different now. So April 2023, the California Public Utilities Commission switched to NEM 3.0 or Net Billing Tariff, NBT. A lot of acronyms out there. So the export value of solar is no longer based on time of use rates. It's going to be based on an electrification rate, and it is pretty lower than NEM 2.0, so the rates are lower than time of use. That said, there's a lot of dramatic variation in the rates for export solar value. So it's obviously not as valuable during the sunny hours when there's a lot of sun out, but during the evening hours, especially in late summer and early fall, the price of solar export can rise above retail rates and almost be $3. So I always say batteries are a great way to, make value of solar energy that might be sent to the grid when it's a lower value. So that said, payback is definitely different. So I would work really closely with installers and let them know what kind of savings you have in mind. They can give you kind of a payback estimate when they design your solar proposal.
I have a short addendum to that. It's reframing the way that you would want to go solar. So if you think about it in terms of, I want to increase my resiliency and be able to supply my own energy as a priority number one, and then make money on my energy as more of a lesser priority, then I feel like that's a good way of reframing it. And it's true that the payback period is longer on NEM 3, but what you will be getting is the fact that you are resilient and are able to supply your own energy in a lot of these different situations.
Thank you, Joseph. And by the way, we just had a power outage yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well, not nice, but you know.
from 8 to 11 in the morning. I was working from home, and it was as if no power impact at all with the battery. All right, Liz, another question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess some of our audience members are not able to unmute. For some reason, it got a little stuck. Do you guys have any in-person questions while I try and figure this out?
Okay, yeah, if they're not in the chat, or, yeah, Mary put her hand down too. So another question here? What county do you live in? San Francisco? In the Mission, yeah. Do you have any suggestions?
I don't have any off the cuff suggestions. I mean, it is always beneficial for not just you, the renter who's staying right now, but for the renter who might be taking your place in the future, for them to basically be able to not quite predict the energy that they're going to spend, but at least offset it. As a landlord, you can actually turn it into a money-making function where if you charge what they would have actually generated or used, and then you just kind of pocket the difference. I see that as a very capitalist way of looking at it, but hey, whatever gets it across the line.
Yeah, I think the difference would be if you owned a condo or, TIC or something like that. You could do induction stove in your own owned unit, so that's an option. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to convince your landlords to make the change unless they have rebates and incentives, and San Francisco doesn't offer them. So, any other questions in the room? Liz, on Zoom, do you have any other questions?
I I think people do, but I guess because it was a webinar, people aren't able to unmute themselves. So
Okay, what about in the chat? Do you have anything?
yeah, because I think someone in the Zoom was trying to ask. Are you able to ask a question now? Does it work?
But we have another question in the room. Go ahead. Changing it out. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Yeah. The question is, if you have a gas stove and it's old in your home, and what's the incentive to change it out? Is just turning the fan on enough? It might be enough for internal air quality, but if you win this induction stove, you'll see how fast. Yeah, you'll see how fast it cooks so fast. I have one, I can boil water in a minute. I can make a whole meal in 10 minutes because it's so fast and it's so hot. And then when you turn it off, it turns off right away. And one thing that I did accidentally when I was testing one of these out, I left a pot on there with water boiling and something happened. I ran out the door. It turned itself off when the water ran out. So it's definitely a benefit. Yeah. Okay. Yes. We're okay, yeah, we're doing the drawing right now. So it goes to Rudy Ascension. Oh, yay. Okay, well, help yourself to that. Take some food with you, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If you have any other questions, and we'll do this again, so you can
Yeah,
share.
we have a couple questions on Zoom still. Someone was able to unmute their mic. So for the person that was raising their hand, would you like to ask a question on Zoom now?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, great. Will this presentation be made available to us after the meeting?
Yes, we'll send it out to everyone who signed up.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank
And then
you.
there's another question that says, is there fire risk from the home battery storage, and would that impact home insurance rates?
Good question for Joseph.
I mean, with any battery storage system, there is an inherent risk, but it depends on the battery chemistry. If you have a battery chemistry that's LFP, which stands for something that I can't think of right now, then the battery risk is significantly lower, almost minimal.
And then one more question is, what action items do you suggest that we can start doing today, this week, this month, and for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so take stock of the different appliances that you have in your home that are running off of gas. Find out, when were they installed? Sometimes they have a serial number on them. Sometimes they have a helpful label that actually tells you when they were manufactured and installed. Generally speaking, your furnace should last you about 15 to 20 years. Your water heater, 10 to 15. Your stove depends on how hard you use it. And the dryer is also kind of depends. But if it's getting on in like 20-ish years old, then I would definitely start suggesting you come up with a list based off of that priority of tenure, so to speak.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joseph and Lauren and Annika. We really appreciate it. So we'll be back. All right.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
And as the final
you.
thing, it was Danielle Casey Callahan. I will reach out to you to get in contact because you win the induction stuff for the Zoom attendance. So I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great presentation.